This is our 13th annual convention, and we're back here in Long Beach. We're really glad to be here. It's a wonderful facility, and we're going to have 3 powerful sessions in the day. The first will be, let's be honest, with artists and leaders of our community, talking about issues that really are considered taboo issues in many Muslim circles. The second will be Fast Forward, Shaping Our Future, with some Muslim innovators. Well, they'll talk about their projects. And then the third will be a political session on, is there a future for political Islam? And that will be followed by our banquet, where we will pay tribute to our founder, and really, MPAC was his brainchild, Dr. Maher Hathout. So I hope all of you join us throughout the day. And it's good to see so many of you at such an early time. For some young people, this is early. But seriously, we're really glad to have you. We'll start, as we always do, with the recitation of the Quran. And today, Dana Jabri, who is a young leader, alumni steering committee member from Chicago, will recite from Surah Al-Balad.
Good afternoon, everyone. Today I'll be opening the convention with chapter 90, Surah Al-Balad, verses 10 through 17, and following will be the translation. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وهديناه النجدين فلاقتحم العقبة وما أدراك ما العقبة فك رقبة أو إطعام في يوم ذي مسغبة يتيما ذا مقربة أو مسكينا ذا متربة ثم كان من الذين آمنوا وتواصوا بالصبر وتواصوا بالمرحمة. But he would not try to ascend the steep uphill road. And what could make thee conceive what is that steep uphill road? The freeing of one's neck, or the feeding upon a day of hunger, of an orphan near of kin, or of a needy lying in the dust, and being with all of those who have attained to faith, and who enjoin upon one another patience in adversity, and enjoin upon one another in compassion. Such are they that have attained to righteousness. Sadaqallahu al-Azim. Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you, Dana. And we chose that verse because it fits the theme for today's convention, the road less traveled. And the road less traveled comes from a poem from Robert Frost, where he talks about this road. And there are many interpretations of that poem, but at the end is the line that makes all the difference. It says, it's the road that made all the difference. And the road less traveled is not the easy road, because it can be a lonely road that very few people take. And as the Quranic verse that we were reciting earlier alludes to, it is a steep uphill road because it's doing things that very few people are doing. It is working for liberation. It is working to speak for justice for those who are powerless and voiceless. And it is meant to work in developing compassion and truth with each other. And that is that steep uphill road. MPAC has built a mission that is very unique. That mission is to have Islam accepted along with all other religions, and Muslims accepted with all people in America to be equal citizens. And with that come challenges. We see the challenges, such as the protesters out there in front of the convention. They represent those groups in America that feel that Islam and Muslims can never be part of America, that we are too alien to American culture, too alien to American society. What we are saying is not only will Islam and Muslims be a part of American society, but we believe it will also enrich American society. But to do that requires us to also look inside our community and work for reform, because as God says, God will not change the condition of a people until they change what is in themselves. So we do need change in our community. That change comes through the mantra of MPAC now: engage, empower, and enlighten. We engage others based on whatever we can determine the common ground to be. Even if the common ground is only 5% and we disagree on 95% of the issues, we will meet on those 5%. If it represents our values of justice, mercy, compassion, human dignity, we will engage. And that's why MPAC has engaged with government, even though people may feel it's a waste of time, or media, even though we feel we cannot get our voices heard, or interfaith groups, even though we feel that there are extremists in those fundamentalist groups that are anti-Islam, or people that politically are against us. We will meet with them. We will engage for the common ground. And even the Quran talks about Musa alayhi salam, when God tells Moses to go to Pharaoh, and Pharaoh is the worst enemy. He's the worst oppressor in the history of all the stories in the Quran. And God says, when you go to Pharaoh, speak to him with soft speech. قَوْلًا لَيِّنًا. So it's telling us, you know, being a rabble-rouser is not a very effective way of communicating. But to speak to people's minds and hearts, even if they are against you, that's the Islamic approach. So engage. Empower. We empower ourselves by being part of the American framework, by being part of the system. And believe me, this is something that is unheard of in many Muslim circles today, that yes, we want to be part of the system. Because many people feel, no, we should just protest the system. Well, we should protest policies, protest issues, but effectively communicate these issues by being part of the discourse on these issues. And if we find things that need to be cleaned out, well, then let's clean up the system. But we want Muslims to be in the Congress, in the White House, in the media, in Hollywood, in technology, not only to be leaders for the Muslim community, but to be leaders for American society. That is true empowerment. And enlighten, basically, we base everything on Islamic values. So we are an Islam-based public policy organization. So again, welcome to the 25th anniversary of this organization that we're all proud of, and welcome to the 13th annual convention. I'd like to ask one of our board members to also welcome you, and he came all the way from Buffalo. We have to excuse ourselves because he had to walk into 65-degree weather from there. So, and by the way, he and his wife completed the Hajj this year, so they are really enlightened. They're following the mantra of engage, empower, and enlighten. Please welcome Dr. Khalid Qazi.
Jazakallah khair. Assalamu alaikum. Good morning. My name is Khalid Qazi. I'm one of the board members of MPAC for the last 10 years, and I'm so delighted you're all here. And you really cannot be a wuss if you want to live in Buffalo. And I tell you that it is the typical Buffalo day today. Snowing, temperature 29, and we love it that way. And that is also a road less traveled. And this is for you. You know, somebody picked up this journal in the morning and said, wow, this looks like pyramid. I said, you're not in Misr, you're not in Egypt right now. This is road less traveled. I'm delighted. I'm here with my wife, Tabassum, and another board member, Mustafa. And we wanted to be part of this historic event and occasion. I have been associated with MPAC for a long time, and especially with my dear brother, Mahar Hathout, for a very, very long time. If you don't know, we trained him in Buffalo before we sent him to California. So whatever enlightenment you think you have, remember where it came from. Buffalo, New York. So enjoy the day, and it will be a great program, and I'm sure you'll have a great time. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you. Thank you, Khalid. I would like to read a letter from the President of the United States, also congratulating all of us for today's convention. Dated December 13, 2013, the White House. I send greetings to all those attending the Muslim Public Affairs Council's 13th Annual Convention, and I'm pleased to join in celebrating MPAC's 25th anniversary. Throughout our history, Muslim Americans have contributed to the character of our country, and their good works have helped build our nation. Today, Muslim Americans continue to move us forward, helping shape the way we think and the way we work. For 25 years, MPAC has offered an important voice for the Muslim American community and sought to advance the values at the heart of our pluralistic society. By empowering the next generation of Muslim American leaders, organizations like yours inspire young people of all backgrounds to engage in the debates of our time. And they remind us that our nation is stronger when we harness the talents of all Americans, no matter where we come from, what we look like, or how we pray. Congratulations on the special anniversary as you celebrate 25 years of service. I wish you all the best for a rewarding, productive convention. Barack Obama. All right. We are just in time to start our session, but I also want to invite another great innovator and young leader who I can't say what he's doing because we can't endorse candidates. So he's only here for educational purposes. And he's here to tell us about his story. He happens to be running for county assessor, but I can't tell you to vote for him. But really, he's been a member of our community for a long time, and I think I knew him even when he was in diapers. He looks a lot better now. But he has been involved in all of the MPAC programs and all the community work, and in our interfaith work. Please welcome Omar Haroon.
Thank you so much, Salam, for that wonderful introduction, and thank you all for being here. It's such an important event. Yeah, just for those of you who don't know me, I've been very involved in the community. I was previously the vice chairman of the Islamic Center of Southern California, and again, I'd like to stress that obviously MPAC or the Islamic Center or no organization can endorse me, but I think civic engagement is very, very important for the community, and I think that's one of the things that all our organizations are trying to promote. And my webpage is omarharoon.com, and I'm running for LA County Assessor. And the election's on June 3rd. So however, which way you choose to vote, I hope you actually do go out and vote. Thank you.
All right. All right, now we're going to have to invite all the other candidates. But we're glad to have you run, because again, this is the best form of civic engagement for all of us. Well, that leads us to our first session. And let me introduce the one who's going to lead us in that session. He's actually MPAC's former national director, and you may have seen him right after 9/11 on Fox News every day. He was a shining light for us at that time as people were bombarding us with questions and inquiries, and he stood up for principle and for us representing our interests as representing American interests. He's going to lead us in this first session. Please welcome Ahmed Younis.
Thank you, Salam. Good morning. Good morning. How's everybody doing today? It's really a great honor to be here. I see Ohio, I see Buffalo, I see my brothers and sisters from the Church of Jesus Day of Jesus Christ for Latter-day Saints. I see people I grew up with. This is absolutely amazing. My name is Ahmed Younis. It's a great honor to be here. What we have in store for you for the next hour and a half is of a revolutionary nature. In the Muslim American community today, there is a significant conversation about the role of arts in the formation of identity and the role of young people in the creation of Muslim community centers of influence and the input of their culture into the culture of the larger community that is being created. This community is quite diverse. My experience at Gallup taught me a lot about the data that relates to the Muslim American community and the significant diversity that exists between us and among us all throughout America. And many people write in the academic literature that really what we're dealing with are Muslim American communities, not a Muslim American community, because of the sheer diversity of what exists all around us. In Muslim American history, the role of art has been quite significant, and anyone that has traveled around the world from among our audience knows that the most significant contributions of Islam to the world have been in the field of the arts. Not only the physical arts, pottery, painting, etc., but also the visual arts, also architectural arts, the creation of buildings that have meaning, the creation of lines in architectural design that speak to values and speak from a well of knowledge and a well of faith in an attempt to evoke a spirituality that otherwise would not exist. So for Muslims, the idea that art would help you get closer to God is really not a very revolutionary idea. But because of our situation as a people around the world today, and because of the increase in a more traditionalist and literalist interpretation of Muslim history and thus mistakenly Islam, art has become something that is very controversial. I myself am obsessed with art. I teach in my university courses through art. Most classes that are held start with some sort of art and an interpretation of that art as it relates to the subject matter of the day. So instead of beginning a class by trying a music video, for example, of Omar Offendum, MPAC has been gracious enough to just bring us the famous Omar Offendum, and I don't have to show a video. He can actually be here himself. Now let me tell you something about Omar Offendum. Omar Offendum is a Syrian-American hip-hop artist born in Saudi Arabia, raised in Washington, D.C., and living in Los Angeles. He's known for taking audiences on a lyrical journey. If I don't put the mic down, I'm going to become the MC, not he's going to. He's known for taking audiences on a lyrical journey from the jasmine tree-lined courtyards of Nizar Qabbani's Damascene homes to the flooded riverbanks of Langston Hughes' Harlem Renaissance poems. Offendum has been featured all over the world. Recently, one of the things that Omar did was a live performance, organized, prepared, written, and performed with the Metropole Orchestra of Holland. It was something of significant proportion, not for Muslims, not for Arab hip-hop artists, but for hip-hop, for a hip-hop MC to speak with the backdrop of a full orchestra is a hallmark in the history of the development of this art form. So what we are going to be blessed with today very quickly is a performance by Mr. Omar Offendum, a performance by the reminders who I will introduce prior to them coming up here, and then we will engage in a rigorous conversation with Shaikh Yassir Fazaga and our two performing acts in an attempt to understand what is the role of arts in the formation of Muslim identity and in an attempt to reach the divine. Ladies and gentlemen, Omar Offendum.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I know it's early, but come on, y'all. I said, Assalamu alaikum. There it is. It is a pleasure to be here. It is an honor to be here, and it is most definitely a responsibility to be here. And I say it's a pleasure because I always love performing in Southern California. I've called this part of the country home for the last 10 years. So it's an honor to be here performing on behalf of the Muslim Public Affairs Council, an organization that I've come to know quite well, and I'm very proud of. And it's a responsibility to be here, not just because I'm Syrian or Arab or Muslim or American, but because I'm a human being who believes in equality and justice for all, full stop. That's something that MPAC stands by. That's something that the artists who will be on the stage stand by. And I thank you all for coming out here to join us today. Give yourselves a round of applause, please. On my way in, I was greeted with a very nice, smiling face, holding a big picket sign saying, "Here comes the hip-hop Muslim. You know you're going to hell, right?" Allahu a'lam is what I said. What I want to share with you guys today, if I may, is a poem that I wrote dedicated to the city that my mother was born and raised in, Damascus, Syria, the longest continuously inhabited city on planet Earth. And given that hip-hop is this urban culture, and more specifically the street culture, I always thought it was cool to be able to represent one of the oldest urban and street experiences in the world. And so I wrote this piece about a very special place in Damascus called the Sham al-Adima, the old city, where many prophets have walked, many stories were shared, and one particular street that's arguably the oldest street in that city. Does anybody know what street I'm talking about by any chance? It's a street called Straight. You see, I took a stroll down a street called Straight. Met a medicine man about a third of the way. Predecessor to the pusher man with something to say about an apple a day keeping the sickness away. I valued his advice at face at first, till he enlightened me to how precisely nature works, giving us citrus fruits in wintertime for vitamin C. Just met each other, but I'm already invited for tea, subhanallah. As fate would have it, he and I turn out to be related. The small world's even smaller when you're Muslim, ain't it? Made it a point to soak in all his information about regenerative meditations and preventative medication like a modern Ibn Sina with a pretty calm demeanor and a remedy for everything that plagued the Arab nations. Yet when asked how to cope with our impossible fate, he just said, follow the middle path to a street called Straight. And so I took a stroll down a street called Straight. Met a spiritual teacher about 2/3 of the way. Predecessor to the preacher man with something to say about a prayer a day keeping the Satans at bay. He spoke of angels on our shoulders and the angles of our solar, systematic self-destruction, metaphysical corruption with a danger to our polar ice caps till it's out of our control and in the hands of our beholder. We philosophized for over 20 minutes like that. Taught me lessons, any questions he would give them right back. Said the answers were within us, and I didn't like that. But I realized later why he did it like that. See, I had so much more to learn. The clock was ticking, couldn't stall. Committed his words to memory. His wisdom wasn't thralling, yet when asking him, what was the most important to recall? He just said, follow the middle path, Straight Street, and that is all. And so I took a stroll down a street called, met a carpenter hard at work at the end of the way. Predecessor to the architect with something to say about not doing tomorrow what should be finished today. So he manipulated wood and metal till it followed function, building all through Via Recta and Cardo Maximus Junction. Something told me he was wise beyond his years. I had a feeling from the way that he'd exposed the beams and ornamented ceilings with an ambidextrous half, nonchalantly jest and laugh, saying that my Western education made it hard to grasp his connection to the past, deep rooted in his craft, but was more than willing to share with me these tools he knew I lacked, and for that I would be grateful. Learning how to build the monumental for the playful and the humble for the faithful. Yet when asked of how we'd stack against our impossible odds, he just said, follow the middle path, Straight Street to Allah. Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Ladies and gentlemen, one more round of applause for Omar Offendum. A lot of people talk about reform in Islamic law and reform in the way that Muslims live their life. Most of these conversations have to do with outcomes, so that conversation usually centers around, for example, symbols of reformation, like a hijab, or like the permissibility of certain kinds of meat. And many times these conversations become very circular because all we're doing really is talking about outcomes. We're not talking about the philosophy or the way of law or the jurisprudence that creates those outcomes. Another way to talk about the reform of Muslim identity in our modern world is to simply exemplify it. Instead of making grandiose claims about the role of women in Islam, instead of making grandiose claims about how Islam is against racism, Instead of making grandiose claims about how Islam is global and transatlantic in identity, we can simply present it through the performance of our next group of brilliant artists. The Reminders, M-I-N-D capitalized, are a hip-hop duo that is steadily rising to the top of the independent music scene. The team, consisting of Brussels-born MC Big Samir and Queens-born MC vocalist Asia Black, are a creative force to be reckoned with. Big Samir weaves intricate rhythmic patterns with bilingual French-English flow, displaying his street-smart credibility in both his lyrics and cool demeanor. This is beautifully complemented by Asia Black's confident delivery, diverse cadences, and unique vocal stylings. Sharing more than lyrical ability and stages, the couple is partners in both music and life and have been married for almost a decade. Their album, Recollect, was released in 2008. Ladies and gentlemen, this right here is about to be revolutionary. Let me introduce to you the Reminders.
Assalamu alaikum. I go by Samir. This is Asia.
Okay. Assalamu alaikum. My name is Asia. This is Samir. We are a husband and wife. We are a hip-hop duo as well. But one thing that I would like to say is we're so proud and so honored, alhamdulillah, to be here and to be in a position to express to people that we may not get to have casual conversations with how we feel and what we think about our position in the Islamic community and the community of the arts. And so I just wanted to say thank you so much for having us and express our appreciation for giving us a platform for something like this.
And since we are performers, we're going to start by performing 2 songs for you guys, if that's all right. All right, let's do it. Let's get busy.
This song is called You Can Count on Me. It's about sticking together through tough times.
Yes.
And you know that you can count on me. No matter where you are, 'cause I'll be there.
Yes.
And you know that you can count on me. No matter where you are, I'll be
I'm
there.
just a true friend, looking out for your best interest. No hidden motives, sincerely care. Allah's my witness. As long as I'm here, you should never feel lonely. Just reach out, you know my love is real and never phony. So whether in great spirit or a bad situation, we can share thoughts through any form of communication. Give you words of wisdom from divine inspiration. I'll never pass judgment and always practice patience.
And if ever you're in trouble, know you
got me.
'Cause we're family in the struggle, so you
got me.
And I'm always down to ride, you can
Call me.
when nobody's by your side, you know
I'll be.
And if ever you're in trouble, know you
got me.
'Cause we're family in the struggle, so you
got me.
And I'm always down to ride, you can
Call me.
when nobody's by your side, you know I'll be. And you know that you can count on me. No matter where you are, 'cause I'll be there. And you know that you can count on me. I'll be there. No matter where you are, I'll be there.
It never gets sold, repeated anytime we come in contact. My word is bond, no need for written contract. Here to uplift, give support when it's needed. Hope you get the message and actually act upon it. I'm your comrade, family, brother, I hope you feeling me. Shouldn't be ashamed, conversation is therapy. Open up, pour your heart out,
And
free your mind. Then we'll get up, celebrate and ride out in the sunshine.
And if ever you're in trouble, know you
Got me.
'Cause we're family in the struggle, so you
Got me.
And I'm always down to ride, you can
Call me.
when nobody's by your side, you know
I'll be.
And if ever you're in trouble, know you
Got me.
'Cause we're family in the struggle, so you
Got me.
And I'm always down to ride, you can
call me.
when nobody's by your side, you know I'll be.
And if you afraid, I will hold you tight. Then whisper in your ear.
It'll be alright.
I said, if you afraid, I will hold you tight. Then whisper in your ear.
It'll be alright.
Yeah, if you afraid, I will hold you tight. Then whisper in your ear.
It'll be alright.
If you afraid, I will hold you tight. Then whisper in your ear. It'll be alright, right.
We're gonna make it through. Always remember I'm there for you. We're gonna make it through. Always remember I'm
true.
We're gonna make it through. Always remember I'm there for you. We're gonna make it through. Always remember I'm there for you and 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 you. That you can count on me. I'll be there. No matter where you are, I'll be there. And you know that you can count on me. Cause I'll be there. No matter where you are, I'll be there.
No matter.
And I'll be there.
No matter.
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 I'll be there. I'll be there. I'll be there. MashaAllah. So believe it or not, we're well known for our live stage performance, but we tend to get too excited and turned up, and I know the stage might not hold it. So just in prevention of that, I wore heels, so I can't really move too much. I kind of have to stand in the same place. So thank you so much for listening to that. And Samira, what's happening now? Oh, we're gonna do another song.
Yeah,
Is that okay?
Is that okay? Can you turn microphone number 3 down a little bit?
Does the music go up any louder or no? Oh, you about to bump it like that?
Let's do it.
All right.
We're trying to get this started.
All right, so most of the music that we perform has themes about positivity and family and encouragement and inspiration and staying close to Allah and being a community and making sure that we find the things that we have in common with the people in our communities and in the world as opposed to just the differences. So that's what our music is primarily about. Just in case you haven't heard of us, you have a background.
And we are on.
In a moment.
Yes. 3, 2.
The silence is not awkward at all.
We hope you guys enjoy this. And we also have videos on YouTube. On that first song that we just did, we have a video where we're riding around in go-karts. Yes, yes.
I can feel it. I can feel it. I can feel it. I can feel it.
Some people cry out of anger, some because of pain. I cried in my songs for both and pray the game. Power and strength, keep it simple and plain. Where I'm from, you gotta be strong to not go insane. Purify your heart, then cleanse your soul. Earth, wind, and fire said love is pure. So I use it in my music for the young and the old. Bundle up, little homie, this world is so cold. Stay covered like modest believers with sleeves on suicide girls. Beautiful artwork, receivers, yeah, we all the same. Share emotions, walking this earth, and one day we go back to that dirt. So whatever hurts you feel is only temporary. Remember, we legendary. From the bottom, deeply rooted with so much glory. Thankful to the one and those who paved the way. This serious sacrifices got me every day.
Yes, in the middle of the dark, I am shining like a star. I can feel it in my heart.
No matter what people say.
Yes, in the middle of the dark, I am shining like a star. I can feel it in my heart. No matter what people say.
When my patience being tested, I'll never give up. Spirit too strong, every day I gotta build up the energy level and discipline to stay on schedule. Nobody around to help when it's jobs to juggle, but quick to wanna celebrate when things get better. Learn the hard way that most friends are only fair weather talk more than they walk, slowing down the process. We keep it moving,
non-stop,
maximizing progress. Every second is a blessing, every blessing is a gift. Count and appreciate before moving to next shift.
If you have lost your purpose and you feeling worthless, you're doing everything you can, but there ain't nothing working. You're feeling less than perfect. Success seems the furthest thing from you. People try to tell you it ain't worth it. Don't let them take it from you. Stay close to those who love you. No one can do it but you, but you, but you. In the middle of the dark, I am shining like a star. I can feel it in my heart. No matter what people say. Yes, in the middle of the dark, I am shining like a star. I can feel it in my heart.
Do you mind putting your hands together with us? If I can't do it, then it can't be done. That sounds great. If I can't do it, then it can't be done.
Yes, in the middle of the dark, I am
shining like a star. No matter what people say.
Yes, in the middle of the dark, I am shining like a star. I can feel it in my heart.
no matter what people say.
In the middle of the dark, I am shining like a star. I can feel it in my heart, no matter what people say. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for your time. We appreciate that.
Gentlemen, the reminders. The reminders. If I can ask Mr. Offendum and Shaikh Yassir Fazaga to come up. A round of applause for the young people with the chairs. I think. Please go ahead. Please, yes, please. Anywhere you'd like. So a lot of times when art is displayed in the public square, it stands alone to speak for itself. It's not concerned with, no, the red chair is definitely either for the sister or the sheikh. I'm not.
I think it's for you, man.
No, man. Yeah, what are you trying to say? Okay. When we, excuse my bag, when we present art in the public square, we present it under the theme of res ipsa loquitur, the thing speaks for itself. Very rarely do we have an opportunity to engage in a conversation that explains what art has just been performed, why it was performed, and what is the purpose of its presentation. We're joined in our conversation by Shaikh Yassir Fazaga, who really is a very unique person. Shaikh Yassir is an inspiring multilingual speaker, sought after all around the world. He was born in Eritrea, in Northeast Africa, which is something that's very important to be said. The Muslims of America are diverse, Africans are diverse, Arabs are diverse, even people that come from the countries of the Arab Gulf are diverse. And recognizing the majesty of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can be done in many ways. One of them is by honoring the ancestry and the family origin of each individual. So Shaikh Yassir Fazaga was born in Eritrea in Northeast Africa and moved to the United States at the age of 15. He has taken upon himself a number of academic journeys. One of them is receiving a master's degree in marriage and family counseling from Cal State Long Beach. He is the religious leader of the Orange County Islamic Foundation in Mission Viejo and the director of the mental health department at Access, California. Shaikh Yassir has been teaching the Arabic language and Islamic sciences and offering Islamic courses on scriptural exegesis. But I'm trying to get to the important part. This is very important. Very important. Shaikh Yassir co-translated the Risalat al-Mustarshideen, the message for the seekers of guidance, a constructive and instructional manual on ethical empowerment originally authored by renowned 9th century scholar Abdullah bin Harith al-Muhasibi, who was known for his spirituality. This book is for those who wish to live ethically, cultivate emotional wisdom, awaken spiritual vision, enhance moral intelligence, and manifest a purposeful living. So this beautiful man who has translated one of the seminal works of Islamic intellectual tradition serves a community on a daily basis, and we welcome him to this conversation. Shaikh Yassir, welcome. Maybe we should start with Omar and Samir and Asia. In asking you the very simple question, what does your role as an artist mean? Omar, this for you would be not only as a hip-hop artist, but as an architect based on your education and your work. What does your role as an artist mean for the development of your own identity? Not necessarily for the messages that you're trying to put out there, but what does your role as an artist mean for the development of your own identity as a person? Asia, if I could begin with you.
With me in particular, my whole life, I've always expressed myself artistically, whether it be through visual art, whether it be through singing, whether it be through songwriting. And for me, I don't ever remember a time when it wasn't integral in my personality, like when it wasn't something I was always doing. I think now in my life, when I was growing up, it helped me to kind of understand my place, my state of mind. Now in my life, I'm a mother, and I'm a wife, and I'm a performer, and I'm a teacher. We also are educators as well. I think that it's one of the best ways to teach people how to get an understanding of themselves and how to be able to understand other people. I can't imagine my life if I wasn't able to express myself through the arts, because I think it's the way that I can create the most three-dimensional, clear picture of who I am.
MashaAllah. Thank you. Samir, do you have anything to add to that?
Well, as she's my reflection, everything she said applies. And as being a father, I have 3 children constantly looking at me, for example. And as well as when we go to these schools and when we mentor these children, or when we're at concerts at these audiences. So I have to reflect my everyday life and everything that I do properly.
You know, it's important to note that the beauty that is coming out of these 2 people right now is recognized by kind of the mainstream intelligentsia of hip-hop life in America. They were recently on Sway's morning show, and you could just kept looking at them, and he was fascinated by the fact that these 2 people are this beautiful and this talented and still married with 3 kids. God bless you both. God bless you both. Omar, maybe you've been positioned differently from other artists in that your own lineage is associated with a major conflict that exists in the world today, and your role in raising money, raising awareness, helping young people articulate their interest in international issues and domestic public policy issues has been quite significant in the Muslim American community. So as somebody that represents one of the largest modes of production for art, knowledge of self, as Asia mentioned, and the development of identity, speak a little bit to how it has affected your own formation as a human being.
Well, I'd first have to say that I certainly agree with everything that's already been said. I can relate to it, completely. And as far as my own personal experience, I had, somewhat of a fractured kind of upbringing of being born in Saudi Arabia, but of Syrian origin, raised in Washington, D.C., and being surrounded by people from all over the world, losing my father, Allah yarhamu, at a pretty critical young age, and all these things, definitely contributed to my view of the world and the way the world was viewing me. And when it comes to hip-hop, as you mentioned, I've dabbled in other arts and have experience in other arts, but hip-hop was, really an incredibly important tool for me, especially in my college years, to be able to relate to people who otherwise were being kind of torn apart. I'd see, especially as the media was concerned, halfway through my college career, 9/11 happened, and I saw people quickly start to label me as a Muslim rapper, as an Arab rapper, when, just weeks before, I was just another kid on campus rapping. And it was really, not trying to toot my own horn here, but my skill and proficiency as an MC that made them kind of approach me, or made me relatable to them, made them want to know more about me. And this definitely instilled a confidence in me. And then it started to show me how powerful this tool was. And I could either use it as something to, bring people together or divide people. And I certainly wasn't the type of person who wanted to be divisive, especially at that time. Not just, for the community, but for my own sanity. Because as I was growing up and feeling so torn, where am I really from? I'm from there, I'm from here, half here, half there. It really kind of helped ground me and gave me a place that was bigger than all of those conversations, and made me realize that it really was one human family that I was trying to, reassure and be a part of, rather than, kind of just affirm my Arabness or affirm my Americanness. It was much bigger than that. And that's something that I definitely found connections to both in, hip-hop culture and, of course, in Islam, and in the way that Islam was taught to me, and the way that I've, come to approach it in my life.
Thank you. Shaikh Yassir, one of the critiques that Derrida has of American intellectuals is that they juxtapose ideas, or they say sentences and throw it up in the air, and they expect the intellectual to give their opinion on what it is that has been presented, as though the intellectual is an ATM machine or a vending machine from which Coca-Colas are produced. Having said that, I'm going to do that to you, and I apologize for doing so. And I ask you, if you can, to answer this question really as a scientist that is concerned with the human mind and the development of the human being. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks to the idea of al-bayan, the art of intelligent speech and discourse, the ability to evoke an idea or an utterance, an opinion that distinguishes a human being from other types of creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, many times young people see that as a danger as opposed to an opportunity for engagement. And the society within which we live, America, renders Muslim life to be, for many different reasons, perceived by many to be under threat. And therefore, sometimes there is a traditionalist reaction to marginalize performances like the ones that we've just seen in an honest and sincere effort to maintain a classical approach to the development of Muslim identity. I present that thought to you with all of what you've seen and ask you in true American fashion to expand.
Let me put it this way. It's good to be with you all, by the way, mashallah. This is really lovely. In about 15 hours from now, Nelson Mandela is going to be buried. And subhanallah, the man is just a beautiful man, and it is such an honor to belong to a species that a person like Nelson Mandela belongs to. Like he was a human being like myself. And what we see in Islam is that the idea of appreciating righteousness in whatever form it comes. And sometimes what we have done is that we have limited righteousness in, like you said, very classical forms. It must take one or two or three shapes, and that is how we're going to confine the definition or the manifestation of righteousness. And when I look into the Quran, for example, I would see statements that are almost depicting somebody like Nelson Mandela. Give you a quick example. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, "Laysu sawa'a," they are not all the same. And the Quran is speaking of the people of the book. He said, "Min ahli al-kitabi ummatun qa'ima." Of the people of the book is a group that stands firmly for justice. يَتْلُونَ آيَاتِ اللَّهِ أَنَاءَ اللَّيْلِ وَهُمْ يَسْجُدُونَ. They rehearse the messages of Allah during the night in adoration of Allah. They believe in Allah, they believe in the day of judgment, they enjoy that which is good, they forbid that which is evil, they hasten in the doing of good. And then the Quran describes this group of people, of non-Muslims, but rather the people of the book, as وَأُولَٰئِكَ مِنَ الصَّالِحِينَ. And these people in the estimation of Allah are considered to be amongst the righteous. And when I look into a person like Nelson Mandela, I'm looking into this and I'm saying, this is really a manifestation, a representation of a form of righteousness. And in the Quran, I am invited to actually appreciate this type of righteousness. But even what makes this beautiful is the role of art in bringing about the struggle of Nelson Mandela. You know, it wasn't just what he said, because the man was in prison. Yet we knew so much about him. Nelson Mandela was put in prison before I was born. This is how young I am. Okay? and what has happened is it was the music that actually universalized the message of Nelson Mandela. So happy to learn, for example, that in 1985, Stevie Wonder, when he won the award, he dedicated it to Nelson Mandela. And that song, I Just Called to Say I Love You. Y'all know which one? Or should I sing it for you?
Yeah, sing it.
No, yeah.
Sing it.
Okay. That song was actually dedicated to Nelson Mandela. Now, if you've never heard of Nelson Mandela, you know the song and Stevie Wonder goes and says, I am dedicating this song to Nelson Mandela. People like Bruce Springsteen, you know, they come out and dedicate all these songs. And what we see here is the merging of art along with the struggles of the people, and they universalize the message. And subhanAllah, you know, music has the ability of transcending all barriers and speaking directly to each and every one of us, a very universal message where people can just relate to what is just being said. The sad part is that again, Muslims have taken a very extremely, and I wouldn't even call it classical approach. We have only dedicated our thoughts to just following one school of thought. And as a therapist, I was so delighted to learn that music therapy was actually an invention of Muslims. An appreciation of what music does to the soul and to the spirit and to the mind of individuals. It was actually Muslim psychologists that came up with the idea that we can help people feel better using music. So these are literally the classical schools that have just been marginalized.
Blessings to you. Thank you very much. I'd like to move the conversation forward just a little bit. Asia, if I can begin with you again this time. A lot of times in arenas of education in America, if we have a classroom that has 30 white kids and one black kid, we juxtapose that one black kid to be the person that speaks for blackness, to be the person that defines blackness, to be the person that defends blackness, and to be the person that is responsible for the posture of a whole people with the quote-unquote outside world. I don't want to do that to you in this conversation. However, I feel it's really important that as an artist and as a human and as an intellectual, a lot of times people look at artists and say that was wonderful art and they forget that that was a product of their mind, right? As an intellectual. Speak to us a little bit, Asia, about ethics.
Okay.
About, because you're the person that invoked knowledge of self in this conversation. Speak to us about ethics, about what you see for the future of society, about what you think is important for all of these folks to listen to, not just as it relates to Muslims in America, or women in Islam, or women in America, or you as a mother, or you as an artist or intellectual, but any part of the question, what is ethical, and what should we be trying to bring about in this society through art and identity?
Okay, first I'm going to start off by saying I was that black child in the class that was supposed to be representative of all those things. One thing, I was raised in a way, my father was in the United States Air Force, so I was raised in a very diverse community. We traveled often, so typically the issue was not that I was black or a woman or that I was mixed race or any of those things. The issue was that I was an American. So I became a very staunch defender of my American identity because it was being thrown in my face at all times. So as I started to grow, I would talk to my parents about diversity, and I would talk about things. I actually lived in the United States until I was about 5 years old, and then I lived overseas until I was about 15, 16. So when I came to America, I kind of had a culture shock. I had to kind of find my place. My parents raised me to think, when you are amongst people, you have to be able to be one of the people, and that means whoever you're around. And that doesn't mean because I'm black, I have to be anti-white. It doesn't have to mean anything like that. It just means that when you're with somebody, their struggle becomes not your struggle, but your understanding of their struggle so that you can cooperate effectively. I think when we're educating children, both Samir and I, we do a lot of workshops with children, and we go with children of all different economic backgrounds. We actually had, and excuse me if I'm being long-winded or rambling, but we actually had the
take your time.
Okay, we had the opportunity to travel to countries like Morocco and Algeria and places like this, and go into communities where we would go from one economic extreme to the other one. And what we were attempting to do was create a musical curriculum that bridges the gaps between children of all backgrounds and making sure that we can find not the differences in their lives, but the things they have in common. And in our position, one thing, mashallah, that is so beautiful is hip-hop happens to be that thing right now. And so we have such an imperative role with these children, because when we go overseas, American hip-hop is the big thing, and that's what the kids are emulating. But now, since it's grown, all of these children have their own identity within the music. So when we see people like Omar, we're from very different backgrounds, but we're the very best of friends, because we come together on issues that may not affect both of us, but we have a very clear understanding of other people's lives, of our position. They understand me as a woman, I understand them as men. He understands me as an American, I understand him as a Syrian American. Creating understanding is very important. And one of the easiest tools, like you were saying, music fundamentally, with music therapy, if you look in any tradition, any cultural tradition, any people of any heritage from anywhere in the world, there's a place where music plays a role in their lives. Even the recitation of the Quran. The first time I heard it, mashallah, I didn't understand what was being said, and I was in tears. And I'm sure that this has happened to plenty of people, because it's the most beautiful thing, not just I have ever heard, but it's like my heart knows it and my soul recognizes it. And with music in particular, that comes about a lot of times. And like you said, it gives us a way to relate to each other. And I think implementing musical education with children from a very small age increases their cultural awareness, and it increases their ability to accept people for who they are. That's my answer, if that's okay.
Thank you so much. Thank you. So Samir and Omar, Black Thought from the Roots always speaks to his people in the crevice, his struggle, and the crevices many times in identity relate to the intersectionality of identity and the multiplicity of representation of an individual. Samir, you come or have lived in Brussels, and in Belgium, you know, the north of the country is a Flemish-speaking community, and the south of the country is a French-speaking community. Despite that, many times you will find hip-hop music in the north from the children of Moroccan immigrants in places like Ghent, battling with the hip-hop of the children of Moroccan immigrants in the south, in French, in places like Brussels. Speak to us a little bit about the intersectionality of identity. Speak to us about hip-hop as an art form that allows for evoking a multiplicity of realities at the same time.
All right. I was born in Brussels, Belgium, so French was my first language. By the time I was 12, I could recite any rap song in English and not know what it meant. But I would walk around and say it word for word. And 80% of the kids in my neighborhood could do the same thing.
Really?
Still to this day. I'm sure if you travel, a lot of kids can say these words, and then if you ask them a question, we were just in Germany a couple years ago, and the DJ is saying all these different things, and when we asked him a question, he looked at us like he had no idea like how to respond. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He just knows songs, and he's just reciting these songs.
He wants to respond in verse. Yeah.
Right. But I mean, he doesn't even speak English. Yeah. You know what I mean? It was. What's your name? He's like he panicked right away. But so from there, hip hop helped me to learn English in a way. Till this day, my older sister, my younger sister, and my mother have a real strong French accent, but I don't, because I learned from just imitating it so hard. You know what I mean? And imitating the accent, that is the American accent. And I feel like as I got older and I began to just jump into hip hop and learning more and more and just being in love with it and becoming an artist. And listening to certain artists like Mos Def, like Black Thought from the Roots, like Rakim, like Wu-Tang, that was my opening to Islam in a way. Some of the stuff that they would mention in those songs, like you said with Nelson Mandela. Some people never heard of Nelson Mandela until the Stevie Wonder performance. Some of the stuff I had never heard of before. I didn't hear about it in school. I didn't hear about it in my house or anything like that. And I started to research it from listening to that music. So I think hip-hop brought me to this in a way.
Speak a little bit real quick to your perception of hip-hop's ability to do that for other people in a global world.
It's definitely not going to do that to everybody. You know what I mean? Not everyone is going to hear that particular message. But I think that's it definitely has that ability. Yeah. And because so many people that I come into contact with around the world tell me the same thing. Like, oh brother, you remind me of such and such. I used to listen to that, and now I listen to you guys, and it takes me back to that. And it's the same message. You guys are continuing that legacy of, you know what I mean? And I feel like those artists are just, some of them Muslim, just being themselves, being genuine, and just being great examples even when they get on the microphone. Not just when they're in their everyday lives, but just keep that going, you know what I mean?
That's wonderful. Omar, if I can just ask a couple more questions, and then we'll open it up for you to be able to bring up whatever you'd like. Omar, the tale goes that the Sultan of the Ottoman Empire sent in ambassadorial mail to the heads of all European countries tulip flowers and their seeds. And the people in Holland really took on to it. It was an attempt by the Sultan of the Ottoman Empire to almost give them a sample of what they could buy and the trade that they could do. The story goes that the people of the Netherlands, really embraced the tulip, and Thomas Jefferson was once in Amsterdam, a city of great fame, and he found this flower. And so Thomas Jefferson brought back this tulip and its seeds and planted it in your state, the great state of Virginia, in what was called Monticello, which is an amazing, amazing building and plantation that reflects the brilliance of the man that was Thomas Jefferson. So that, Omar, is the story of how tulips came to the United States of America. You're somebody that is no holds barred when it comes to reaching into history for ideas, reaching into history for the baseline concepts that you feel will literally liberate the spirit of an individual that is listening to your music. How do you go about that process? And what is it that you're attempting to do by invoking Nizar Qabbani and Langston Hughes and all of these different people? And what do you feel is your role in bringing the beauty and gold, the distilled silver of history, to the nusuk, if you will, to the modern time?
Wow, you are
sorry,
a
okay,
poet,
I'm
my
sorry.
brother. I love you so much.
I love you
really.
too. I'm sorry.
This, wow, where do I even begin with that? So, I mean, he mentioned Thomas Jefferson. I went to the University of Virginia, which was started by Thomas Jefferson, a controversial figure in his own right. But to kind of take it back a little bit, you know, when I was growing up in Virginia and in Washington, D.C., I attended what's known as the Islamic Saudi Academy. At the time that I went to the school, it was fully funded by the Saudi government. It was open for any Muslims, and in fact, not even just Muslims, people who wanted to send their kids to this school, which created a very interesting dynamic as far as, you know, ethnic backgrounds, racial backgrounds, socioeconomic backgrounds, even religious at a certain point, until it just became mostly Muslim. And, you know, one thing that a lot of my friends and I had in common was hip hop, our love for hip hop. Why that is, I couldn't tell you. It's just something that we all loved, appreciated it. Perhaps it was seeing that there were marginalized voices that were able to empower themselves through this art form. Perhaps it was the natural affinity that we had for spoken word and for poetry that we saw in our own backgrounds as Arabs or Africans or African Americans, etc. But I also know for a fact that it had a lot to do with the way that, you know, 5%er and Nation of Islam ideology had affected the lexicon of hip hop, so that it was very normal to hear Allah, to hear Muhammad, to hear Ramadan, break fast like Ramadan. And it was cool to be able to kind of pull from that and to be able to say those things. And that made it very relatable to us and made us feel cool. Oh, wow, we have something that we can actually participate in and be a part of. And then finding out that a lot of these MCs that we admired were actually Muslim made it even more so. And at the same time, paralleling that was my own love and interest in all of us kind of studying the Arabic language. And poetry is the backbone of the language. For anybody who studies the language, you see, just as tulips are sent, you know, poets are sent to kind of represent the tribe and represent the people and to express the ideas. It's you know, a very oral culture, as is most of the cultures throughout Africa and the Middle East and, you know, that part of the world. And so these traditions were carried out, and these ideas were passed on through generations with poetry. And so for all these things kind of mixing around in my head, and when I try to approach an Islamic teacher or an Arabic teacher and say, you know, what Al-Mutanabbi is doing with this particular poem is exactly like what Rakim was doing, and they're like, you're crazy, Omar, that doesn't make any sense. But over time, I think it does make sense, you know, it makes perfect sense. And something else that I learned through my appreciation of hip-hop culture was to, have a strong understanding of where you came from. If you don't know where you're coming from, where you're gonna go. And that was manifested artistically in the art of sampling, where a lot of these, beat makers, producers didn't necessarily have access to instruments or to classical training, and so what they did was they would take old records that were sitting in their parents', living rooms or what have you, or they'd go digging in the crates to find records that had little breaks and little samples in them that they could loop, that then rappers and break dancers could dance to or could rap to, and so kind of passing on that tradition that way, kind of in a new way, and that also kind of embrace technology. And so what I saw as my ability to do that, or my contribution to hip-hop could be, one of the things it could be, was kind of doing that poetic sampling and seeing these strong poetic traditions that existed in my culture, and finding ways to infuse, my lyrics and my songs with some of those poems, translating them from Arabic to English, and then quickly realizing if I was going to do that I would also have to be a two-way street. And so if I was going to translate from Arabic to English, why not do the opposite? And recognizing the importance of a poet like Langston Hughes, not just for me, but also for hip-hop culture. I think a lot of the younger people around me weren't recognizing the fact that hip-hop was a modern extension and incarnation of something that had been happening for a long time. And to lose the connection to people like Langston Hughes, to Gil Scott-Heron, et cetera, was a travesty in my opinion. So I'd try to kind of pull those. And I also noticed that a lot of the young kids in the Middle East who were starting to embrace hip-hop didn't necessarily see those connections. And so why not introduce them to someone like Langston Hughes, who in his poetry was talking about the Euphrates River and about the Nile River and about all these things. And so again, making it bigger than, just these little bits of experiences that we think define us, and recognizing the multiplicity and the fact that, it's not a static thing, and that all these things kind of feed into each other and reflect each other. And, so all of that kind of, makes its way into my music in one way or another, and it's something that I've come to embrace. And it's really out of a desire to do, again, something I learned from some of my favorite MCs, and that is to keep it real. I'm not talking about experiences that are not mine. I'm talking specifically to things that I grew up with, but in a way that I hope is relatable to people, that they can find, interest and appeal in, and can perhaps maybe push them to want to do the same for themselves, or, for us as a community, et cetera.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. And that simplicity, it's amazing, because when one listens to your music, they're presented with a very complex layering of many different schools and worlds and civilizational narratives. But it's amazing that as an artist, you went right back to the core, which is, he said, a beat and a loop. And, the jizza, okay, I won't recite that song, but Shaikh Yassir.
Can I also just real quick before we go,
Please.
And I don't mean to, sorry to cut off the conversation, because Shaikh Yassir is someone who I admire greatly. And honestly, I never pay attention to khutbahs as much as I do when Shaikh Yassir is speaking. But I just wanted to say, speaking of khutbahs, the only other person I paid attention as much to was Dr. Hathout, who a lot of people in this room know. And I've had the honor and the privilege of sitting with him over the past year and a half, getting to know the artist in him that a lot of people don't necessarily know existed. And he, aside from being, the cardiologist and the community activist, the interfaith and youth advocate, and the founder of MPAC, and the incredible inspiration that he is on all these levels, he's been a poet since his teenage years, writing poetry in classical Arabic. And I've sat with him several times, had him recite this poetry to me. I would transcribe it and translate it. Things that he wrote back when he was 17 years old in 1955. And I swear to you, one of the lines was, as I translated it, "I spit hot fire." He was 17, and he said this. And for people who aren't familiar with that, that's probably the most hip-hop thing you can say. And he said it, and he said it, and he said it the same way I would have said it. And immediately when I heard that, and when I saw that, I felt like the 45 years between us just vanished. And I was sitting with, my peer, my poetic peer. It totally disarmed the entire situation. We both became very comfortable with each other. He started telling me when he was 17, he had the idea for taking this one piece of a Mozart concerto. And he always loved the way that this Mozart concerto had a violin, build up that repeated, and he wanted to take that and loop it, and he wanted to try to put some poetry on it. He's saying all this to me, and by the way, this means that he was trying to create hip-hop music in 1955. He's saying this to me, and I'm just, my jaw's on I can't believe it. I can't believe it. And again, that's another beautiful example that I needed, especially at that point in my life, to remind me that, this is all part of a bigger story. We're all part of a bigger story. Never be so cocky to think that what you're doing is the most unique and profound thing in the world. No, not at all. Recognize and be humble and respect and appreciate and honor the people who paved the way for you and things like that. So, sorry.
No, thank you. Which is a perfect segue to telling you about this play called Haram. This play, Haram, is based on the poetry of Maher Hathout. It is the creation of a group of his students in translating his poetry and putting it to a play. It will be January 10th, 11th, and 12th. You can purchase tickets here, or you can purchase tickets on the MPAC website, or you can get one of these flyers for the play Haram. It's amazing that Omar just said that, because there is a line by the Jizza on the live wire known as the dragon spit fire, verbal action, hotter than grease and deep fryers, delivered in the perfect pitch, because hip-hop is all of my genes, the pattern is seen in every stitch. And I used to always think of Hathout when I heard that line. Every time. I'm just like, yeah, man, he's the dragon, he spits fire. That's wonderful. Alhamdulillah. Okay. Shaikh Yassir, okay, so ushers will be passing around opportunities for you to make donations, and we are also going to have a question and answer. I will ask one more question of our panel, then they will be available to all of you for your own question and answers, and the ushers are available for your contributions and your donations and your support of MPAC for its revolutionary work. Shaikh Yassir, a lot of what I write about right now is the Hathout Osman era of Muslim American intellectual thought, and trying really to concretize what it is that we learned from these three teachers, what they have contributed to Islamic intellectual tradition, and what they have created in terms of programs and institutions that aid in the development of a Muslim American identity. One of the conversations I had with Dr. Hassan, God rest his soul, many times, was a conversation about why, Ahmed, is there no choir in the youth group? And he would always kind of push me, may God rest his soul, why are we not doing more innovative things with the young people? Why is art not a part of what's happening here? Why is it that when I go to the interfaith events, the church has a band for the youth group, but we don't have a band for the youth group? And in those days, before kind of we were on the line in terms of branding, that was really a conversation that never arose at all in any Muslim community that I knew. Talk to us a little bit about, is having a choir in a mosque haram? No, I'm just kidding. Talk to us a little bit about the formation of institutions that aid in the development of the identity of young people, and what maybe in your vision, could a Muslim institution look like in the future that catalyzes and exponentially grows the beauty of these three people that we have on stage?
Unfortunately, I did not meet neither Dr. Fathi Uthman nor Dr. Hassan Hathout. And that is a big regret that I have. Dr. Hassan, I've heard him speak, but I really did not get the chance to meet with him. But I, alhamdulillah, have had the honor of meeting with Dr. Maher Hathout. And I remember I met with him about 5 or 6 weeks ago. And I had a purpose when I went to meet with Dr. Hathout. And I had 3 questions for him, but one of them was to express appreciation for he has really paved the way for people like myself. And I gave him the example that I said, Dr. Hathout, long ago, before 9/11, before it was very popular to bring in an interfaith panel to the masjid, Dr. Hathout, Dr. Siddiqui were doing this on a regular basis. And people, including myself, we would just chew them up for wanting to be white, we would say. And we would have all sorts of accusations because we thought that such kind of activities were somewhat demeaning, unacceptable. And 9/11 takes place, and you realize that, you know what, Dr. Hathout was 20 years ahead of everybody else. The things that we're doing today that seem to be popular, he was doing it 20 years ago when it was not so very popular. You know, so for that, I really, really appreciate the contribution that Dr. Hathout has made, which actually makes a conversation like this possible. To actually bring up the possibility, hey, look, what about, you know, starting something like this in our masjid? And I can tell you about 10 years ago, that man right there, Tariq Shawqi, we actually held, I think it was our masjid, if I recall, it was our masjid, we had the first hip-hop festival. Do you remember that? Yeah. And we actually put it together, and it was, you know what, the sheikh is behind it, and it was our own youth group that was leading the effort. But like these people have said, you know, it was just expressing the struggle, expressing the teachings in ways other than the imam talking. Because people really have felt that, you know what, if anything is to be said, it's only the imam that is going to say it. And I tell you, you know, thank you for your kind words, Omar, but it's when I started bringing hip-hop into my khutbah that the khutbah actually got better. and I'll give you an example. You know, one time, I would just be quoting different rap groups, and I would actually say it in the khutbah, say, and according to the rap song that says, and I would make a point that I am going to tell people, let people know where it is that I got this line from. So I remember one time I was talking about, you know, what the FBI does to, you know, what the practices with the Muslim community. I said that reminds me of, you know, what Public Enemy said. They, you know, speaking to the police, they said, you protect us from the criminals, but who's going to protect us from you? And what happened is that the entire masjid, everybody just going, yeah. Everybody loved that line. Everybody loved it. But the idea that, you know what, Public Enemy said it, it was a rapper that said it, but what happened is that it hit a chord with everybody that was in there. And people related to it, and everybody was in just full agreement with that statement. And the fact that it came from a rapper, people did not mind this at all. They really just enjoyed the beauty of the statement. So my hope, or the other time that I also quoted Father Desmond Tutu from South Africa, and I would say it out. I say, no, it's like what Father Desmond Tutu said: in a situation of injustice, if you decide to be neutral, then you have chosen the side of the oppressor. And you can see the entire masjid going, yeah, man. I'm saying that was Father Desmond Tutu from South Africa, and people really did not mind who said it. They really just enjoyed the beauty of what was said. And like you said earlier in the question, the idea of bayan, you know, just Allah giving us that ability to express ourselves. And if you look into the Quran is really a bayan. It's a form of bayan, speaking to it. So my hope is that our institutions are going to, you know, take the culture that we are in consideration in reaching out to the young people. See, there is a reason why we put you to sleep in the khutbahs, by the way. Okay. There really is. Because we have not, you know, Dr. Hathout said it once beautifully. He said that we speak like foreigners, we act like foreigners, we behave like foreigners, and then we complain when people treat us like foreigners. You know, so there is that tendency that if this is what we are going to continue to do, then in our own midst, we are going to treat each other as foreigners because we have not, you know, found that common language that you and us can speak.
Thank you. Okay, we will begin with the questions that have come from the audience, and they really are quite fascinating. Let's kind of go from left to right with the artist Asia, starting with you. The elephant in the room here is that not all Muslims are beautiful. There are Muslims that are quite ugly and their actions are quite ugly, and our collective understanding would be that their actions contradict Islam. And not all hip-hop is beautiful. There is a good deal of misogyny and racism and self-hate and the glorification of guns and drugs, etc. Now, we among ourselves at a coffee shop can have a conversation about what do those symbols mean and what is the representation of those symbols. The question that really has come from the audience a number of times is how do you reconcile the misogyny and racism of art generally and the misogyny and racism of Islam acted out by some Muslims generally? And here there's a very specific question. Would you refuse to share the stage with a shake it rapper? As a Muslim family-friendly artist, do you find it more challenging to be competitive in a field dominated by vulgarity and a culture that somewhat celebrates vulgarity?
One thing that I'd like to say is the issues that you're mentioning, misogyny and racism, those are issues that I deal with personally on a regular basis, not just in music, not just in art. They're just issues that are consistent in my life as far as them existing, as far as my children have to dealing with them, as far as me raising 2 daughters and 1 son and trying to create an environment where they can exist peacefully in the world. One thing that a point that I'd like to make is I am a person, when I came to Islam, one of the things that I felt most, and this is very strange for me to express, is envy. And the reason I felt envy is because it seemed like all of these people had such a good sense of their cultural identity. And I did not. Not only are both of my parents of mixed race, but all of the people in my ancestral origin had their culture taken from them. So in my life, art became my culture. It is just my culture. So within all of our cultures, there's misogyny, and there's racism, and there's violence, and there's hatred. Do we advocate those things? No. Do we stand for them? No. But we speak against them. And you'll be surprised how when you come upon these people, I'm going to give an example. We performed with Snoop Dogg when he was still Snoop Dogg before he was Snoop Lion. And from his music, people would assume that he's one way. From the things he does, people assume he's one way. When we met him, mashallah, he told us, seeing you perform as husband and wife brings me almost to tears. Seeing that you're here, my parents were there, seeing that you're here with your parents brings me almost to tears because that's what I strive for with my family. Wow. And I love being around spiritual people, right? And that was right when he was getting inclined toward changing himself, right? At the same time when he's feeling this huge spiritual inclination to change himself, people are telling him, you're nothing, you promote this, you promote that, right? He said, I'm in a position where no one can imagine the type of position that I am in because I've made my life from this and now I have changed and I have to convince the world that that's the truth, right? So imagine these people, me and Nicki Minaj, right? People always say, oh girl, you look like Nicki Minaj. I'm like, okay. But Nicki Minaj and I are from the same area of Queens. Like I'm from Hollis, she's from Jamaica, right? Her experience is 100% the experience of a lot of the women growing up there, right? And is it for me to say since I was able to be removed from that experience, I'm better than you? No, it's for me to say there's more than one way to be. And even though you don't have the examples that everyone has, it doesn't mean you can't be something. And the way that we can do that is not by going into environments with people and judging them, but showing them that we respect them, right, as a person. And saying, even though I don't have those kind of messages, this is what I do. Because the best way to lead somebody is not by pushing them, it's by example. If you push them, right, then they push back. If you pull them, then they pull away. But if you just walk off over here and look peaceful and content and happy and say, it's great over here, they might be inclined to come over there and take a look. So that's the way I feel about, you know, that position. There's misogyny and there's racism and there's hatred everywhere in the world. Our job is not to find one sector to fight that in. It's our job to refuse it in absolutely every sector of our lives. So.
Please, you want to speak to that?
Yeah, I mean, every like I said before, everything she says, I live in that same.
Yeah, we all understand why now, brother. She knows what's up.
But prior to that Snoop Dogg incident, we were more of a low key, okay, this is what we stand for, so we're gonna be with artists like us, we're gonna be around people like us. And that was one of the few times where we accepted a performance with an artist like that. And trust me, it was nerve-wracking the whole time. We're like, well, how's it gonna go over? You know what I mean? And meeting him was unbelievable. To hear Snoop Dogg say, I love being around spiritual people that could also rock the house. And the way he spoke to her father, he said, stay close to your daughter. This is the same things that I do, keep supporting her and things like that. You know what I mean? It was big. And
this is part of marriage.
And also that night, what Snoop was doing, it was at a real small venue in Aspen, Colorado, so in the mountains. And what he was doing is he allowed people to take a picture with him for $100. Like they got to meet him and take a picture with him, and that went to this lupus foundation because his daughter had he just found out his daughter had lupus. And so and she didn't end up having it, but he still went on with the foundation and put the money towards that.
There's probably 400 people
We're lined up.
100% of the proceeds from that go to the Foundation for Lupus.
Wow.
So while everyone thinks that he's just a man out doing these things, he's relating his experience. He got rich off relating his experience. But once his experience changed, then nobody was really making room for that. And I think we have to maintain that level of respect for everybody in every environment, because us being respectful means people will respect us in return.
Lord.
And I feel like also sometimes our presence in these avenues can help other people. You know what I mean? We shouldn't isolate ourselves just because of certain. We definitely should protect ourselves, no matter what, no matter where we go. For example, we homeschooled our children up until this past year. We sent them to school, and we were really on the fence about it. But one of my good friends who homeschooled his kids and then sent them to school said, sometimes you need to do that to expose other people to them in the way they are. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, please.
You know, again, you know, the same questions that are addressed to you are addressed to the imam that says that music is halal. Because immediately people would come and say, well, what about this, what about that? And I think what people do is that they mix the principle and the application. In principle, you know, you can have a knife and kill people with it or cut meat with it. You know, you can't really label the knife as right or wrong. The knife is what you do with it. Similar to that is music in principle is beautiful. And you know, they say that, you know, man was never able to imitate nature in its beauty, let alone supersede nature. The only place that we've actually done better than nature has been music. The type of sound that man creates is really done better than what nature has to offer to us. You know, and that is very telling. And these are observations that were actually, again, made by Muslims, therapists and psychologists who are in the field. But I think what has happened is that we have taken the position that, you know what, how good I am depends on how I make other people look bad. You do this, and you are on very shaky ground when that happens. Because I think that your goodness ought to be on what you are offering, regardless of what other people may or may not be offering. And if I want to protect my children from listening to that, then I have to bring them an alternative that is as competitive, that is as entertaining as these people, what they're offering, with a different message. I remember one time I was in Tijuana, and don't ask me why I went there. I'm in Tijuana, so we're having, forgot it was lunch or dinner, and there was music being played. And the beats were beautiful. I know that the assumption made here is that the sheikh does not have any skills related to music or art, but I play the keyboard. And what happened is that, but he was just making the announcement, okay? And I have a very good, I think, I have a good musical ear. So when I hear a good beat, I actually recognize a good beat. So it was a very, very beautiful beat, and I can just look at people. Sometimes when we have nothing to do as therapists, we just sit around and be psychoanalyzing you. And so what happened is that I am sitting down and I'm just watching people as they're walking by, and they're shaking it because the beats were really nice, and people just, you know, shaking it, and I'm paying attention to the lyrics. And there was only one sentence that was just being repeated. was B, get out of the way, get out of the way B. B, get out of the way. And I see these young ladies walking by and it's just B, get out of the way, get out of the way B. And that was it. But it was, the beat itself was really, really nice. So I come back to our youth group, my Google, and I say, you know, I just heard this song. What is it? And they all laughed and they said, oh, Sheikh, that is ludicrous. And this is such a popular song. And here I am saying that, you know, when you have this young woman so desensitized to the fact that she was just called the B word and she was told to get out of the way and to actually have her dance to that type of music, that is disastrous. It really is, it really is. But the question is, where are we getting the alternative from?
Yeah.
And I think that is the challenge that we have.
Yeah, wonderful. That's perfect. Omar, can I just directly connect to what was just said? Speak to us about masculinity. Speak to us about the development of the identity of a young man, the need in all cultures and art forms to make the mistake of believing that decency is soft and indecency is hard. Very similar to our foreign policy. For a long time in the United States of America, we've always believed that the guns and the tanks and the bombs are what is referred to as hard power, and the aid and the respect of human dignity and helping people eat and develop their societies was referred to as soft power. And over time, we learned that it wasn't very hard, and the softness is what turned out to be the hard stuff that works. Speak to us a little bit about the formation of male identity for young people, and how you, as a person that evokes, an identity that is beautiful and decent, how do you think about the development of young men and their identity, both Muslims and those who are not Muslim?
Wow. I'm not sure if there's enough time to speak about all of those things as much as I'd like to, but I will say my mother is the one who taught me how to be a man. And that was obviously due to just the sheer circumstance of her being the one that was there to teach me those things, but also exactly as you put it, the decency and the respect and the truth that I saw in how she carried herself was what I wanted to embody. And I came from her body, and I had to honor that. And I've made many mistakes, and I will continue to make mistakes, but it's something that I'm always reminded of. And we have many beautiful sayings, and not just Islamic culture, but world culture, that remind us of those things. In Islam, of course, we have the emphasis on the mother constantly, that the path to paradise is below her feet, and when asked who is more important, it's the mother, the mother, the mother. So these things definitely resonated with me, and it was also her who really exposed me to the beautiful side of my culture through poetry. And so literally the things I was saying, my language, the way I speak, everything is from her. And I'll just give an interesting example. I was performing at Harvard University a couple of years ago, and it was part of a kind of symposium that they had, like international hip hop. And so there were artists from West Africa, and different parts of Africa, and the Middle East, and West Indies. And I was performing last, and so the other artists did their thing, and then I got up and did my thing. And there was a bit of a Q&A session afterwards, and one of the teachers that we were performing for, because this was the Center for Middle East Studies Outreach Center, so this particular center at Harvard was designed to kind of give outreach to the local high school and middle school teachers and show them different ways to learn about Middle Eastern culture, African culture, etc. And so they were interested in figuring out how to incorporate hip hop in the classroom. So this one teacher, a woman, said, my question for you, Omar, is I'm seeing how the other rappers perform, and there's a lot of bravado and masculinity and strength that I'm used to seeing from MCs. But when you got up and performed, I saw what I could only describe as very kind of effeminate hand gestures and a very subdued kind of tone and something just very different from what I'm used to, and I'm wondering if that's a decision you make consciously. And it really kind of took me off guard a bit, I'll admit, you know. And I didn't take offense to it the way that, you know, a lot of people immediately in the crowd did when she said, they were like, oh, wow, I didn't at all, actually. But what I did say to her was, you know, I think it just depends on what your definition of masculinity is. You know, I come from a culture where men very casually hold hands as they walk down the street, greet each other with kisses and smile. And as I've been doing this whole time, subconsciously, we use our hands to talk, and it's just part of how we do what we do. One of the biggest poetic influences on me was a man by the name of Nizar Qabbani, a Syrian poet from Damascus who was known for his love poetry, which to him was the most revolutionary thing he could do. To liberate love in a part of the world that was just full of shame and of not being allowed to speak about your love for someone else. And, you know, of course, not to mention just how much we hide, you know, the beauty of our women in different ways. And, you know, it was controversial to a certain degree. Some of the things he said were controversial to a degree, and I know that that was all on purpose, and it was all part of a bigger idea of just reminding people that this is something very important, you know, and it's something that I laugh about when I perform. Sometimes I just say, hey, out of curiosity, how many people have ever been in love? And I guarantee you, every time it's with a predominantly Muslim audience, nobody raises their hand. I didn't say, ooh, who has a girlfriend, who has a boyfriend, da-da-da-da-da. I just said, have you been in love before? Love could be with anybody, you know? And it's sad. It's really sad. And I'm going to touch on something that I actually heard Shaikh Yassir say in a Friday prayer. I think it was last year. He was talking about a very sad reality that we have now with parents and their children where, you know, the father, for example, will come home and he'll bring work home with him. He'll have his face stuck in his laptop or his BlackBerry. And so when Shaikh Yassir had asked one of these students something, and he said, you know, I hate BlackBerries. He was like, why do you hate BlackBerries? Is it because, you know, my father pays more attention to the something to that effect. I'm sorry if I'm not quoting you right. Pays more attention to that than he does to me. And he started to go on and talk about how this is a very sad reality in our community, and this is not just for Muslims, this is for everybody, you know, nowadays, hyper-connected. And he mentioned the 3 A's, you know, and again, there's something very poetic about this, and this is why it stuck with me. He said the 3 A's are, to keep a family together, attention, affection, and appreciation. And, you know, there's so much that could be said about all those things, but I just know from what I've seen in my experience in our community, definitely not enough affection is showed. There's something seems to be that it's like shameful to show your son or your daughter affection, you know, which is just certainly not the case. And I have the beautiful example of the reminders to kind of remind me of that. You know, and appreciation. We don't tell each other how appreciative we are of them. And this is something that Ahmed does constantly, that I see. If anybody follows his energetic Facebook feed, he's always reminding us of how we should appreciate our wives, our mothers, our daughters, et cetera, and I love you for that, brother, and I appreciate you for that. And attention. Man, this is me, you know. I know myself. I stick my face in my phone way too much, and I lose attention of those who are around me, and it's something that I've struggled with for a long time. Perhaps many people in here do. And it's a problem. It's a problem. And so I've consciously tried to recently kind of put it down and just be more aware of what's happening around me. You know, as we get more and more connected, sooner or later they're going to implant these things in us and give us glasses where we can just see the social networks around us and not even have to move from our couch anymore. It'll just be around us. That's not okay, you know. I take time out of my day to take a walk, to go out into this beautiful state of California and walk across the hillside and see these beautiful landscapes around me and just pay attention to the beauty of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's creation that's constantly being reminded in the Quran, and in it to see myself in it and all these things. And so, anyway, I'm going off on a tangent again, but the 3 A's, if that's anything we can take away from this conversation, thank you, Shaikh Yassir, for that. Attention, affection, and appreciation.
Thank you, Omar. Is there anything in your heart that you would like to speak to before we close this, please?
Can we please just have a round of applause for our lovely moderator who has such beautiful questions? And not only is he an educated man, but he can quote the illest of hip-hop lyrics at the drop of a dime, ladies and gentlemen. So one thing I'd like to say that I appreciate is, obviously you're a very intelligent person, a very educated man, mashallah, but I like how we can identify with you, and it shows that you're capable of communicating on so many levels. And when we didn't understand, like sometimes you could tell when we were all just kind of like looking at each other like, 'cause we want to be academic too, you know, we're intelligent too, but you just are a level beyond. The way that you were able to communicate, and the fact that you were just, both of you, like both very well educated, very respected men, quoting hip hop lyrics, it makes me feel relevant, and it makes me feel good. And speaking to intention, one of the things that drew me to Islam in particular was the importance of intention, and ever making me and allowing me to feel justified in my action, and allowing me to teach my children about intention. Small things. Did you mean to hit her? No, I did not. So you don't have to apologize, but just explain that you didn't mean to hit her so that she can understand. And that comes from Islam. And as hip-hop artists, I know both Omar and both Samir and I, our intention is to make sure that there is an alternative, and to make sure that we're accurately representing a generation of people that may not have had both parents present, that may not have had a lot of things, that grew up in the 80s when there were a lot of drug addiction and things like that. Make sure that we're accurately representing that the way that you grow and what you become is a choice. And your circumstances don't predict your success, right? We have the condition to change our position in life at any time, and Allah gives us that power. And mashallah, I'm just grateful to both of you, to all four of you gentlemen. I'm appreciative for being on the panel with you, and I just wanted to say thank you very much.
God bless you. God bless you. I pray in the name of the infinite, the beginning before all beginnings and the ending after all ends, the source of beauty, love, and mercy, the reason why we are living and the reason why we worship. I am reminded of a proverb that my father always reminded me of growing up. It is a proverb among the Arabs, and it is al-ina'u yandahu bima fih. A vessel can only pour from that which it contains within it. These people are filled with beauty. They are filled with inspiration from God, and we thank them. We humbly ask you to support MPAC, to support the institution that has consistently for 25 years done with confidence what everyone else should not be done. And there are many available ways for you to do so, including the Check-O-Matic and other avenues. Most importantly, and in final closing, we love you. May God bless each and every one of you. May God give you what you pray for in this life, and may He give you paradise in the next. Thank you for being with us. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.